Hello everyone. Relax your body, gently close your eyes, and let your mind settle into the quiet stillness of the night. Take a deep breath, release all the weight of the day, and let this mystical epic carry you into a peaceful, profound slumber. The village of Oakhaven nestled quietly along the misty edges of the Veral Valley, where the pristine boundary of the Holy Realm met the ancient, undisturbed gloom of the Forbidden Forest across thousands of years. In that peaceful village, Sanji was once the very embodiment of purity and boundless compassion. He possessed a rare, breathtaking beauty as if sculpted by celestial grace with all its devotion. Silken golden hair softly spun from morning sunlight, deep cerulean eyes brimming with empathy, and a radiant smile capable of soothing the most tormented and afflicted souls. Beyond his ethereal appearance that stirred human hearts, Sanji was gifted with gentle, pristine healing magic, a warm essence ever ready to bestow life and mend any fallen traveler on the wayside or anyone exhausted by terminal illness. He lived with his elderly parents in a modest wooden cottage resting on a slope carpeted with wildflowers. Day after day, Sanji diligently cultivated precious medicinal herbs, sharing dry bread and drops of herbal remedies with destitute wanderers passing through the village. Sanji's heart was as pure as an untainted mountain spring atop snowy peaks, free from selfish desires or worldly dust. To the villagers of Oakhaven, he was both a devoted physician and an obedient son, ever willing to stoop down, listen, and share in every sorrow of the mortal world. Yet, in a world where human hearts harbor unfathomable depths of darkness, his excessive benevolence and peerless beauty inadvertently became a sharp thorn piercing the eyes of petty, envious men with vile ambitions. The darkness of malice never arises from nothingness, it festers and quietly expands from mediocre jealousy. Within the village of Oakhaven, certain men watched Sanji's divine aura day and night with eyes burning with hatred. They could not stomach the sight of a humble peasant farmer receiving absolute reverence from everyone, the deep infatuation of fair maidens, and the respect of the elders. Sanji's comprehensive perfection was an invisible blow to the twisted pride of incompetent souls. A sinister, ruthless plot was quietly hatched in dark attics, where envious men sought to shatter this flawless being down to his very marrow. On a freezing winter night, when the crescent moon was obscured by thick clouds as black as coagulated blood, a horrific tragedy descended. Sanji's dearest childhood friend, the one who had shared joy and sorrow with him since youth, was discovered slaughtered in a dry creek behind the village. The crime scene was a horrific nightmare that would make anyone shudder and vomit. The body of the unfortunate friend was dismembered, each fiber of flesh torn apart by cruel magical incisions. All internal organs were dragged out, scattered across freezing crimson gravel stained deep red. Most horrifying and grotesque of all, carved deep into the shattered chest of the victim was an ancient light magic rune inscribed in smoking, fresh blood. And across the entire vast territory of Oakhaven, only Sanji possessed and mastered that pure art of light. The bronze alarm bell of the village tolled frantically, tearing through the nocturnal silence that enveloped all things. Jolted awake, Sanji rushed out of his cottage into the howling, freezing wind with trembling hands holding a pouch of medicine, praying in his heart to save a life. But when his feet touched the creek bank, what greeted him was not the desperate gaze of a victim seeking rescue, but hundreds of blazing crimson torches and faces twisted in blind, bestial fury. Harsh, violent fingers pointed straight at Sanji's face. The true instigator hid carefully behind the mob, sneering maliciously before raising his voice in false accusation, his words sharp as poisoned daggers. It is him. That light magic rune is unmistakable. He used his false sanctity and pretended benevolence to mask the bloodthirsty monster within. Sanji butchered his friend to practice dark arts. Sanji stood petrified amidst the pool of thick blood reeking of death. He looked down with trembling eyes at his own pale hands, hands accustomed only to gathering herbs, healing people, and soothing pain, now illuminated by torchlight in sickening red as if he had plunged them into an ocean of crime. He struggled to speak, his throat choked, words breaking in his chest. No, it wasn't me. Please, calm down and see the truth. How could I butcher my dearest friend? In my entire life, I have never harmed a single branch or blade of grass. Why would I commit such an unholy, Barbaric act? Yet, answering his tearful plea was only a few seconds of terrifying silence, before exploding into the savage roars and curses of a mob stripped of humanity. Human hearts here were chillingly ungrateful, all profound debts of gratitude from the past. The sleepless nights Sanji spent saving their children from death's scythe, the sacks of grain he surrendered to them through freezing winters, all were swept away without a trace after a single vile provocation. The long-suppressed jealousy acted like fire meeting dry oil, bursting into flames that incinerated all conscience and truth. They did not care who the real culprit was. They merely wanted a perfect pretext to drag a noble, flawless being down into the filthiest mud, forcing Sanji into the same wretched degradation. Instantly, thick iron chains lined with sharp barbed hooks were flung forward, coiling tightly around Sanji's limbs. Cold metal bit deep into his flesh, fresh blood soaking his coarse linen clothes. The villagers rushed in to trample him, dragging him across the jagged, stony paths where he had once walked in peace. Dirt, filthy water, and bitter curses pelted his handsome, blood-streaked face. The lashes tearing his skin did not hurt as much as the ultimate betrayal gnawing at his soul. Sanji looked up at the pitch-black, starless night sky, searching for a ray of supreme justice. But only the freezing wind howling through barren trees answered him. Warm tears rolled down his cheeks, mingling with crimson blood falling onto the frozen earth, awakening a toxic, dark seed sleeping deep within the soul of a martyred innocent. That night, upon the ancient stone square at the heart of Oakhaven, a barbaric and cruel tribunal was hastily erected under the supervision of corrupted rulers. There was no impartial indictment, no authentic witness, and no opportunity for justice to speak. The air was choked solely with the bestial, blood-demanding roars of a populace manipulated by blind malice. In the center of the cold ritual stones, Sanji was pinned against a barbed wooden post, blood dripping steadily from wounds carved by tightened chains onto the cracked earth. Before his blood-veiled sight, two frail, aged figures knelt low in the foul mud, his father and mother. Both broken bodies trembled uncontrollably from the bone-chilling cold and mortal terror. Their necks pressed against the cold, gleaming blades of stoic executioners waiting for the signal. The choked sobs of his aged mother pierced Sanji's chest like needles, driving him into desperate struggles, his inner magic struggling to erupt but suppressed by steel nails driven into his critical meridian points. The true architect of this grotesque drama emerged slowly from the shadows of the stone colonnade. Approaching Sanji, his eyes gleamed with sick triumph. Tilting his head close to Sanji's bleeding ear, he whispered in an unearthly tone audible only to the two of them. "How does it feel, holy, noble Sanji? Do you believe your ethereal beauty and mercy can redeem this world? Your perfection has been the most nauseating thorn in my side for years. You enjoyed all the adoration, while I remained a base shadow behind you. Today, I shall strip away all your humanity, turning you into the filthiest refuse on earth." Sanji's eyes widened, veins bulging across his handsome face as he let out a gut-wrenching roar. "You beast, you murdered him. You took an innocent life merely to sat your vile jealousy? The gods and the light of justice will crush you to ashes." Yet, the villain merely sneered in contempt. Turning to face the howling crowd, he raised a hand with feigned authority to command silence. In a clear, resonant voice laced with insidious venom, he proclaimed the council's final barbaric decree. The crime of murdering a fellow disciple for dark arts is a defilement that cannot be cleansed under the light of justice. To wash away this disgrace and soothe the departed soul, the council grants the murderer Sanji one final mercy to choose his demise. First, he must take this magical dagger and pierce his own heart to atone on this spot. Second, if he is too cowardly to forfeit his wretched life, he must take this broadsword and decapitate his own parents, bearing the curse of eternal exile into death, trading his own flesh and blood for the innocent soul. Suicide or slaughter your parents. Choose, hypocrite, blood for blood. The villagers bellowed in unison like a pack of starved hyenas, without a shred of doubt or pity for the innocent elderly couple. Such inhuman cruelty surpassed every boundary of mortal endurance. Sanji's parents looked up at him through blurred tears. Their eyes held no blame, Only boundless love and profound sorrow for their son. His father shook his head weakly, while his mother used her fading breath to murmur against the wind. Sanji, my child. No. You must live. Do not let them taint your soul. But the perpetrators never intended to give Sanji a choice. The decree was merely sadistic amusement to crush his spirit. Without waiting for Sanji to react or utter a final word, the mastermind nodded to the executioners. Two sharp blades rose in unison, carving cold arcs under the dim moon. Slash, slash. The sickening sound of severed flesh echoed. Blood erupted from the throats of Sanji's parents like crimson fountains, spraying across the earth, dyeing the stone courtyard red and splashing onto Sanji's stunned face. The two aged heads rolled across the dirt, their eyes staring at their son until their final breath faded. Absolute silence descended. The world around Sanji collapsed entirely. A cataclysmic explosion ruptured his consciousness, tearing apart every moral tether and shattering the pure light he had protected for years. The scream bursting from his chest was no longer human. It was the harrowing shriek of a demon crawling from the deepest abyss of hell. Redemption was trampled. Mercy was crushed under iron heels. Blood-kin was slaughtered before his eyes. Sanji's cerulean eyes mutated violently. The pure blue vanished, replaced by a glaring crimson flame of pure hatred, pupils narrowing into sharp vertical slits like the deadliest serpent. Boom! A violent explosion of dark magic erupted from Sanji's body. The ceiling nails and barbed chains shattered into thousands of sharp metal shards, piercing the chests and faces of nearby onlookers and unleashing agonizing screams. Dark miasma rose from the earth, wrapping around his bleeding frame. Sanji's golden hair was partially stained by pitch-black energy, creating an eerie contrast of gold and black. His handsome features twisted into a manic, sorrowful smile, exuding an androgynous, deadly allure. Stepping down from the execution post, he walked across the blood of his parents. His glowing red eyes swept over the trembling, retreating crowd. Is this the justice you worship? Sanji's voice resonated, low and raspy like a vengeful demon. You wanted a monster. I shall become the most ruthless demon on this earth to shred your flesh and torment your filthy souls for eternity. That blood moon night became an indelible nightmare for the land of Veril. Sanji threw himself into the mob like a slaughtering phantom, using bare claws and awakened dark magic to butcher everyone involved. By dawn, Oakhaven was a burning ruin of severed flesh and ash. Sanji vanished into the forbidden forest, carrying a dead soul and an eternal oath to drown the magical world in blood and agony. Doi de la ban dik tiang an chuan zak. De du tung kao chu va kao truck don van kua fan 3 va fan 4. Doi chu nguyen van voi ban tiang viet. Part 3. Whispers in the Ancient Crypt in the NIC Cipher. Following the night of horrific slaughter in the village of Oakhaven, Sanji wandered like a lost phantom amidst the suffocating black mist of Mount Veril. The agony of losing his parents and the supreme betrayal of mankind had utterly crushed every fragment of pure light within his soul. His bare, bleeding feet walked aimlessly upon the freezing snow, yet the bone-chilling cold of the mortal realm could never compare to the icy deadliness gnawing through every inch of flesh within his chest. In the extreme delirium of his boundless hatred, a crimson, sinister pulse from the deep subterranean earth began guiding his steps toward an ancient cavern, the resting place of the ruins of NIC. A dark heretical alliance sealed by the Holy Vatican over 1,000 years ago. NIC stood for 3 ancient primordial demonic runes: Nox, eternal night; Infernum, chaotic hell; and Cruor, ruthless blood. This was the supreme symbol of the archaic underworld, where absolute darkness held dominion to overthrow the reign of the gods of light. Stepping past a colossal stone archway carved with countless esoteric glyphs burning with eerie will-o'-the-wisps, Sanji beheld an ancient grimoire floating in midair, emitting harrowing groans akin to the wails of 10,000 damned souls. The forbidden tome inscribed with the NIC cipher fell wide open before his eyes, each line of blood text glowing with uncanny radiance. NIC. Unveil the heart, surrender the soul, cast aside humanity to embrace the undying dominion of the Archdemon. A deep, seductive voice resonated from the void. It was the divine consciousness of Robbie, supreme overlord of the NIC Dark Alliance. Hiding deep within the abyssal pits awaiting the day of restoration, Sanji collapsed to his knees before the stone altar, his trembling hands touching the pages of human skin. He harbored no fear, on the contrary. An insane fire ignited within his blood-red eyes. He craved power. He sought the most ruthless dark art to force every hypocrite claiming to represent justice and light to kneel and beg at his feet. Sanji began reciting the forbidden incantations in the ancient tongue of NIC. Nox infernum cruor. Strip the bone and peel the skin. Invert the very heavens and earth. At that precise moment, pitch-black magical chains erupted from the tome, piercing through his flesh, plunging directly into Sanji's meridians and heart. A soul-rending agony exploded. His body convulsed violently upon the cold stone floor. Ancient black ichor of NIC flooded his veins, dissolving and suffocating the final embers of pure light magic. The physical metamorphosis unfolded with horrific intensity. His flesh turned corpse white as a drowned cadaver. His lips flushed crimson as if sipping fresh blood, and his golden hair transformed into two striking, contrasting shades, half pitch black of the abyss, half radiant gold of a fallen seraph. The bodily mutation did not end there. The forbidden arts of NIC shattered his mortal biological structure, reshaping Sanji's countenance into a bizarre, androgynous entity. His features balanced the sharp, authoritative angles of a dark lord with the soft, lethal seduction of a netherworld siren. It was an uncanny beauty, half male and half female, breathtakingly magnificent yet terrifying enough to chill anyone to the bone. Simultaneously, from the crypt's gloom, a slender figure gliding with dark lightning emerged. It was Ezreal, the designated pathfinder of NIC and Robbie's foremost lieutenant. Ezreal possessed eerie violet eyes and an ancient magical gauntlet capable of sundering spatial dimensions. Beholding Sanji, who had just completed the dark transmutation, Ezreal flashed a cunning smirk and spoke in a shrill, mocking tone. "Welcome to the darkness of NIC. Exquisite discarded soul. Lord Robbie has witnessed the magnificent hatred within your heart. Use this monstrous beauty and dark arts to drown the Vatican hypocrites in rivers of blood." Sanji rose, his tattered robe whipping wildly in the noxious gale. Gazing upon his elongated, razor-sharp claws, he burst into a shrill, unearthly laugh, a sound alternating between deep masculine resonance and piercing feminine cadence, echoing off the stone walls. "Vatican, Ebert, await your doom. I shall turn your sanctimonious realm of light into a crimson slaughterhouse." From that very second, the gentle peasant Sanji was no more. The magical world officially confronted a sadistic monster, an entity worshipping physical agony and spiritual torment as supreme art under the banner of the vile NIC Alliance. In absolute contrast to the terrifying doom of Veryl's Deathlands, the power center of the Holy Vatican was an imperial capital bathed in radiant celestial light, enveloped by towering divine wards. Ruling this realm was Ebert, Supreme Grand Commander of the Vatican, wielder of the holy light sword and pure divine magic capable of dispelling all foul miasma. Beneath Ebert stood Vlad Dracula, the ancient vampire lord who alone surrendered to justice. A loyal ally wielding purified darkness. And the most precious jewel of the entire Vatican territory was Ember, Ebert's pure, breathtakingly beautiful younger sister. Ember carried the bloodline of a saintess, with cascading platinum hair and eyes clear as emeralds. Possessing a merciful heart, she was the beacon of hope and serenity for all citizens of the Vatican realm. Yet, her unblemished purity rendered her the primary target for the vile NIC Alliance. To a twisted sadist who derived ecstasy from trampling beauty and sowing mental torment like Sanji, Ember was the ultimate masterpiece he longed to dismantle with his own hands. On a gloomy twilight painted in pale amber, Ember and the Vatican Royal Guard conducted a blessing ritual within the holy forest along the eastern frontier. She remained unaware that a bloody trap had been laid by the bearers of the NIC brand. As the carriage caravan traversed the narrow gorge, the sky darkened abruptly, engulfed in dense violet fumes reeking of sulfur and fresh blood. Slash, slash. Lethal beams of violet arcane energy fired from Ezreal's ancient gauntlet, tearing through space and impaling the hearts of dozens of elite Vatican paladins in the blink of an eye. Agonizing screams ripped through the woods. The entire royal escort collapsed in pools of blood before their blades could clear their scabbards. Horrified by the slaughter, Ember swiftly raised her light scepter, chanting to manifest a radiant defensive barrier. O supreme beings of the Vatican, dispel this vile darkness. Yet, that pure barrier had barely materialized when a pale hand tipped with long black talons pierced straight through it. A figure glided forward like a spectral tempest. Ember stepped back in sheer horror at the entity before her. It was a creature of peerless yet grotesque beauty, two-toned hair fluttering. Blood-red lips curled into a sinister smile, and crimson eyes burning with ruthless savagery. That being was Sanji. A pure flower of the noble Vatican, Sanji whispered, his cadence shifting between a woman's melodic murmur and an archdemon's guttural growl. How utterly pitiful that such holy perfection is about to have its petals torn away. One, by my hands. Trembling, Ember mustered a blast of holy fire. What manner of beast are you? How dare you violate the sovereign realm of Grand Commander Ebert in the Holy Vatican? Sanji did not evade. The holy flame struck his chest, merely scorching the fabric to reveal the blood-red NIC seal pulsing upon his pale skin. Sanji let out a low moan of perverse pleasure at Ember's feeble resistance. Lunging forward, he seized her delicate throat, lifting her slender frame into the air. Dark magic surged from Sanji's grip, sealing Ember's meridians and burning away her spiritual reserves, leaving her convulsing in agonizing silence. Ezreal emerged from the mist, bowing with a sly smirk. Sanji, the prize is secured. Lord Robbie commands us to use this wench to lure Ebert and his Vatican remnants into our destructive trap. Sanji glanced down at the fading maiden in his grasp, his lips curling into an abominable, sadistic sneer. Luring Ebert is merely secondary. What thrills me to the bone is hearing her desperate shrieks as I fracture every fragment of her holy spirit. Drag her to the dungeons of Tartarus. Space ruptured, unveiling a pitch-black portal emblazoned with the NIC rune. Sanji hauled Ember's limp body through the void, leaving behind a burning forest and the butchered remains of the Vatican Guard. A catastrophic shadow descended upon the Holy Vatican, inaugurating a blood-drenched crusade between light and darkness. Doi de la ban dik tieng an chuan zak. De du tung kao chu va kao truck don van kua fan 5 va fan 6. Doi chu nguyen van voi ban tieng viet. Part 5. The Cell of Bestiality and Physical Agony. Deep beneath the lowest depths of the fortress of Tartarus, the abyssal bastion of the heretical NIC Alliance, the air hung thick with the suffocating stench of rust, sulfur, and stagnant death. This place was a damp, black stone labyrinth where the pristine light of the Holy Vatican could never, across all eternity, hope to reach. In the center of a cavernous torture chamber illuminated solely by the sickly green glow of floating will-o'-the-wisps, Ember was bound tightly upon a rusted iron cross densely covered in sharp, jagged spikes. Her delicate, pale wrists were clamped by heavy magical shackles inscribed with the cursed NIC brand, completely sealing away her sacred maiden bloodline and radiant light magic, reducing her to nothing more than a frail, helpless maiden abandoned before a merciless fate. Slow, feather-light footsteps carrying a suffocating pressure echoed from the surrounding shadows. Sanji stepped into the dim light, draped in a sheer silk robe of deep crimson that exposed his unnaturally pale, corpse-like skin. His two-toned hair, half abyssal black, half shimmering gold, cascaded over his slender shoulders, while his blood-red lips, appearing as though they had just sipped fresh lifeblood, curled into an utterly sick and depraved smile. He approached Ember slowly, his elongated fingers tipped with razor-sharp black talons gently tracing the contours of her porcelain cheeks, which were drenched in cold, silent tears. The freezing, frostbite-like touch of his claws sent violent shudders racking through Ember's entire frame. Awake at last, exquisite flower of the Vatican? Sanji murmured softly, his voice shifting between a melodic, high-pitched feminine whisper and a deep, guttural masculine growl. Do you have any idea how long I have yearned for this moment? A soul so untainted, a beauty without a single flaw. It makes a stained, defiled creature like me ache to rip it apart, piece by piece. Ember bit her lip until fresh crimson seeped out. Her emerald eyes filled with terror yet stubbornly maintaining the indomitable pride of royal blood. Grotesque monster, my brother, Grand Commander Ebert, and the holy legions of the Vatican will hunt you down. You and your filthy NIC alliance will be burned to absolute ash by the holy flames of divine light. At the mention of Ebert's name and the title of the Vatican, Sanji's exquisite, androgynous face twisted into a violent, manic spasm. He burst into a shrill, piercing laugh, a screeching sound so horrific that it rattled the moisture-laden stone walls of the subterranean dungeon. Leaning in until his lips brushed against Ember's ear, he hissed through clenched teeth. Divine light? Justice? Ha ha ha. Where was that wretched justice of yours when my parents had their throats slit right before my very eyes? Where was that noble light when that entire vile village trampled and framed me without mercy? Let me show you, in this cruel world, only torment and brutality are real. With those words, Sanji flicked his wrist. A cruel magical whip woven entirely from blazing crew or dark miasma materialized within his grasp. Without a fraction of a second's hesitation, he lashed the whip violently across Ember's delicate, trembling frame. Crack! The horrific sound of tearing flesh blended instantly with Ember's heart-wrenching, agonizing scream, reverberating off the four stone walls. Her pure white holy vestments were shredded into bloody ribbons, leaving behind deep, smoking wounds that hissed with corrosive dark poison. Yet Sanji did not stop. Ember's agonizing cries acted like a potent stimulant, fully awakening the depraved, bestial madness lurking within his corrupted soul. Laughing like a maniac unleashed, he rained down a relentless flurry of savage lashes upon her battered body. With every brutal strike that landed, Sanji let out a low moan of pure, perverse satisfaction. His crimson eyes dilated with monstrous ecstasy. He used his sharp talons to gouge Ember's skin, carving the cursed letters of the NIC runes directly into her bare, trembling shoulders, allowing the vile venom to corrode her meridians and taint her sacred bloodline into pure defilement. Ember lost consciousness multiple times under the unbearable weight of the pain, only for Sanji to invoke dark healing magic to restore her senses, trapping her in an endless, horrifying loop of physical and psychological torment. Scream louder, beg for your life, Sanji roared in a state of absolute bloodlust. Let your sacred purity dissolve into absolute despair. Ember could only gasp weakly through her feverish delirium, her dimming eyes seeing nothing but an endless abyss. She realized with chilling certainty that the creature standing before her was no longer human. He was the living embodiment of an bottomless pit of vengeance. A demon who feasted upon the suffering of others simply to fill the shattered, irredeemable void within his own ruined soul. Within the great basilica of the Vatican, the customary solemnity and holy tranquility had been entirely replaced by an atmosphere of suffocating grief and incandescent fury. In the middle of the grand hall paved with flawless white marble, the mangled bodies of dozens of elite Vatican paladins slaughtered by NIC dark magic lay in long, grim rows, draped under the sacred funeral banners of the Holy See. Upon the chest of every single fallen soldier was the deeply seared, smoking brand of the three letters NIC, dripping with foul, coagulated black blood. Standing before the elevated dais was Ebert, Supreme Grand Commander of the Vatican. He was clad in his brilliant golden divine armor, but his usually calm and commanding countenance was now hard as iron, his eyes blazing with an unquenchable fire of righteous vengeance. Ebert's armored fist gripped the hilt of the holy light sword with such immense force that his knuckles turned white beneath the gauntlet, the furious divine aura radiating from his body causing hairline fractures to spiderweb across the marble floor beneath his boots. When the dire news reached him that his beloved sister Ember had been abducted and her entire escort brutally butchered, the heart of the supreme leader felt as though it had been pierced by 1,000 poisoned daggers. NIC, the crawling vermin of the deepest abyss, dare lay their filthy hands upon my sister? Dare challenge the supreme order of the Vatican? Ebert's booming voice rolled through the massive cathedral like thunder, carrying cataclysmic authority. I swear upon my very soul and this consecrated blade, I shall purge every foul fiend from this earth and grind the dungeons of Tartarus into dust. Standing beside Ebert, veiled within the deep shadows cast by the colossal marble pillars, was Vlad Dracula. The ancient vampire lord was cloaked in a midnight black mantle embroidered with silver thread. His deep ruby eyes holding an ocean of unfathomable sorrow. Unlike Ebert's direct, fiery rage, Dracula's immortal heart was being torn apart by a suffocating, agonizing inner conflict. When his eyes fell upon the bizarre magical wounds carved into the corpses of the paladins, a twisted form of life-giving restorative arts corrupted into a flesh flame. Bone-crushing venom. Dracula had instantly recognized the signature of the one who cast it. It was Sanji, Dracula's dearest, most cherished friend from the distant past. The gentle farmer who had once shared quiet philosophies of love and life with him. The singular soul who had saved an immortal vampire from an eternity of cold loneliness. Dracula stepped forward out of the shadows, his voice low, somber, and trembling with suppressed emotion. Ebert, the one who abducted Ember, the one who slaughtered your elite guard. I know him. He was once the most benevolent, gentle soul to ever walk this earth. Ebert turned around sharply, his gaze cutting like a razor-sharp blade as he stared directly into Dracula's crimson eyes. What are you saying, Dracula? You know this butcher who bears the mark of NIC? Who is he to possess such a depraved, monstrous, and merciless form of dark magic? Dracula closed his eyes tightly, recalling the bright, warm smile Sanji used to wear under the gentle sunlight of Oakhaven years ago. Long before the tragedy destroyed him. His name is Sanji. He was once my closest friend. He was cornered by petty envy and the cruel injustice of mortals. Forced to watch his own parents brutally slaughtered before his eyes. That unbearable agony drove him into the waiting arms of Robbie and the forbidden arts of NIC. The Sanji of the past is dead, but I never could have imagined he would devolve into such a bloodthirsty, sadistic monster who takes perverse pleasure in torturing others. Ebert let out a furious roar, swinging his holy light sword with immense force, cleaving a massive ceremonial stone altar completely in two. I care nothing for his tragic past. Any creature that aligns with the vile alliance of NIC, anyone who dares to lay a hand on Ember, must die. If you hesitate because of some ancient friendship, Dracula, then I shall sever his head from his shoulders myself. Dracula stood utterly still before the volcanic wrath of the Vatican's supreme commander. He knew in his heart that Ebert was right. The crime of abducting and mercilessly torturing an innocent maiden could never be pardoned under any law of heaven or earth. Yet, deep within his immortal chest, Dracula could not stop wondering whether, beneath that grotesque, androgynous exterior and that twisted sadism, a single spark of Sanji's former conscience still flickered, or had his dearest friend been entirely consumed by the abyssal curse of Robbie and the dark realm of Tartarus? I will ride with you, Ebert, Dracula spoke at last, his eyes flashing with a painful yet resolute determination. I will confront Sanji myself. If he has truly become an irredeemable demon beyond salvation, then I shall end his eternal suffering with my own hands. At that very moment, the great bronze war horns of the Vatican sounded across the Holy Realm. The Holy Light Legions began their grand assembly, preparing to march toward the deadlands of the Viral frontier to initiate the most cataclysmic and blood-soaked holy crusade between the forces of light and darkness. Doi de la ban dik tiang an chuan zak. De du tung cao chu va cao truck don van kua fan 7 va fan 8. Doi chu nguyen van voi ban tiang viet. Part 7. The Shadow Alliance NIC and Robbie's ambition. Deep beneath the subterranean depths of Viral, inside the soul shrine overflowing with white skeletal remains, the throne of the heretical alliance NIC stood imposing and majestic amidst an ocean of boiling crimson lava. Toxic fumes rose in suffocating plumes, casting an eerie, spectral glow upon the three colossal NIC talismanic runes suspended in midair. Seated upon the sovereign throne was Robbie, supreme overlord of the Netherworld. A tyrant harboring the boundless ambition to devour the entire magical world and overthrow the absolute dominion of the Holy Vatican. Robbie possessed a colossal, towering physique clad in spiked, pitch-black armor, radiating a suffocating aura of death that compelled even the grand archdemons to bow their heads in trembling submission. In his hand, he cradled a soul orb churning with concentrated resentment and agony, his merciless gaze sweeping down upon his two foremost lieutenants below, Ezreal and Sanji. Beside them, Ember lay completely motionless upon a cold black ritual altar. Her frail body covered in lacerations torn by dark whips, weeping blood continuously, her shallow breath flickering like a candle before a tempest. "Excellently done, Ezreal, Sanji." Robbie's voice boomed like deep thunder rolling from the realm of the dead, by capturing Ember. "We hold Ebert by the throat. That arrogant commander of the Vatican will undoubtedly march the entirety of his Holy Light legions straight into the Veral Gorge. That day shall mark the ultimate extinction of those sanctimonious hypocrites." Ezreal stepped forward, the ancient arcane gauntlet encasing his right arm crackling violently with sinister violet lightning that hissed through the stagnant air. Flashing a sly, treacherous smirk, he bowed low. "Lord Robbie, the spatial network of NIC dark magic has been meticulously deployed across the entire valley. The moment Ebert and Vlad Dracula step foot into the formation, the spatial portals will instantly tear the Vatican vanguard to shreds, isolating their supreme leaders for you and Sanji to annihilate." Robbie nodded slowly, yet his cunning, predatory eyes shifted toward Sanji, who stood in chilling silence beside Ember's battered, blood-drenched body, observing the eerie, androgynous beauty and the violent, tumultuous dark magic surging within Sanji's veins. Robbie's insatiable greed and deep suspicion were ignited. He knew well that Sanji had completely absorbed the ancient forbidden grimoire of NIC, possessing a remarkably pure and boundless reservoir of archaic dark energy. In Robbie's true, hidden design, Sanji was nothing more than an expendable tool, a colossal vessel of raw magic destined to be drained completely once the grand battle concluded, allowing Robbie to ascend to supreme godhood. Robbie approached, striking Sanji's shoulder with a heavy, armored palm, speaking with feigned camaraderie. "You have suffered countless injustices. Sanji, use this war to cleanse your vengeance against those self-righteous mortals. When I rule supreme over all creation, I shall grant you the absolute power to govern both the realm of the living and the dead." Sanji raised his blazing crimson eyes to meet Robbie's gaze. The corners of his blood-red lips curled into a half-smile. "Profoundly subtle, wicked, and unfathomable. The power to govern? I care nothing for such trifles. My lord, I only desire to see this wretched world writhe and convulse in endless agony. Precisely as I was forced to endure." Concealed beneath his facade of subservience and madness, Sanji's razor-sharp instincts had already caught the subtle flicker of dark treachery lingering in Robbie's eyes. Yet his blinding hatred left him utterly indifferent to his own survival. Turning back to the fading Ember, his elongated talons gently grazed her throat, quietly preparing for the bloody spectacle that was about to unfold. The thundering gallop of divine steed hooves tore through the dense mist blanketing the Gorge of Death. The vanguard of the Holy Vatican, personally led by Grand Commander Ebert and the Vampire Lord Vlad Dracula, crossed the frontier and advanced straight into the territory of NIC. The radiant holy aura radiating from Ebert's consecrated blade blazed like a miniature sun, burning away every pocket of toxic miasma obstructing their path. Yet, as the holy vanguard advanced into a desolate field of ancient ruins, the surrounding space abruptly ruptured. Cataclysmic shockwaves of lethal violet energy erupted from Ezreal's arcane gauntlet, activating the grand spatial formation of NIC and severing the Vatican's battle lines in an instant. Amidst the swirling dust and chaos, a spectral, shadowy silhouette glided gracefully through the smoke, descending lightly upon the summit of a towering boulder. Dracula froze in his tracks, his ruby pupils constricting violently. Standing directly before him was Sanji, yet the gentle, humble peasant friend of the distant past had vanished without a trace. Before Dracula's eyes stood a demonic entity of breathtaking yet terrifying androgynous allure. His two-toned hair, half gold, half black, danced wildly in the poisonous wind, his crimson silk mantle parting to reveal the blazing NIC brand seared into his pale chest, while his blood-red eyes radiated a killing intent so absolute it froze the marrow in one's bones. "Sanji." Dracula's voice trembled, a single tear of pure blood tracing a slow path down his pale, aristocratic cheek. "Why have you fallen to such a state? Look at what you have become. You serve the foulest demons. You have drenched your hands in the blood of the innocent." Sanji tilted his head, letting out a shrill, piercing laugh. a chilling sound shifting seamlessly between a woman's seductive murmur and a man's guttural rasp, making the surrounding air grow colder. Dracula, my old friend, have you come all this way merely to preach the cheap, worthless morals of the Vatican? When they slit my parents' throats, where was your justice? When I wept and screamed in absolute despair, where was the holy light of your glorious gods? Dracula took a desperate step forward, extending a pleading hand. I know your unbearable pain, Sanji, but butchery and torture will never bring your parents back. Stop this madness. Release Ember to us, and I swear upon my immortal honor to shield you before Ebert. Shield me? A spark of pure, unhinged insanity flared within Sanji's crimson eyes as he hissed venomously, I despise your pathetic pity. The weak, cowardly mortal of the past is dead. Today, I stand as the living retribution of NIC. Boom. Sanji gave Dracula no further chance to speak, lunging forward with blinding speed. His black talons cleaved through the air, aimed straight for Dracula's heart. Dracula had no choice but to draw his bloodsword to parry. The collision of primordial dark magic and consecrated vampire blood unleashed violent shockwaves that pulverized the ancient stone terrain into dust. Dracula held back his full might, desperately clinging to the hope of awakening his friend's lost conscience. But Sanji showed zero mercy. Every strike Sanji unleashed was lethal, aimed ruthlessly at Dracula's most vital points. Crack. A magical whip woven of blazing crew or dark energy lashed out from Sanji's hand, violently knocking the blood sword from Dracula's grip and striking the Vampire Lord square across the chest. The force sent Dracula hurtling dozens of meters backward, crashing violently into the stone ground and coughing up a mouthful of crimson blood. Standing upon the elevated precipice, Sanji looked down at his battered, bleeding friend without a single flicker of remorse, his face masked in absolute, chilling cruelty. You are far too soft, Dracula. In this war between the Vatican and NIC, compassion is nothing more than worthless garbage that leads straight to the grave. With those parting words, Sanji turned and vanished into the swirling black mist, leaving Dracula collapsed in a state of profound helplessness and overwhelming grief. In the distance, Ebert's thunderous roar echoed across the mountains, signaling that the total, cataclysmic war between light and darkness had officially begun. Doi de la ban dik tieng an chuan zak. De du tung kao chu va kao truck don van kua fan 9 va fan 10. Doi chu nguyen van voi ban tieng viet. Part 9. The VARIL battlefield reeking of death. The Valley of Veril had transformed into a colossal meat grinder beneath a tempestuous sky swirling with pitch-black clouds and blood-red lightning. The suffocating, metallic stench of fresh blood blended heavily with the foul odor of scorched flesh and the sulfuric vapors erupting from abyssal fissures. The severed corpses of the Holy Vatican paladins and the demonic beasts of the NIC Alliance lay strewn across the wasteland, piled high into gruesome mounds. The once pristine mountain streams had turned entirely into thick, coagulated crimson torrents, smoking with dense, lethal deathly miasma. At the epicenter of the slaughter, Grand Commander Ebert stood clad in his blazing golden divine armor, carving a lone, radiant path through the suffocating encirclement of thousands of shadow fiends. The holy light sword in his grasp hissed through the stagnant air. Every wide arc he cleaved unleashed waves of pure divine radiance that instantly incinerated any foul fiends obstructing his way. The Supreme Commander's eyes burned with incandescent wrath as he gazed into the distance, where atop a black stone altar, his younger sister Ember hung suspended amidst the barbed, shadowy chains of NIC, her frail frame covered in festering wounds that wept blood without pause. Ember, Ebert let out a gut-wrenching roar, his holy magic detonating outward to blast dozens of surrounding beasts to pieces. You NIC beasts. I shall butcher every single one of you into crimson ribbons. Yet before Ebert could charge forward to save his sister, the space before him violently warped and buckled. Countless lethal bolts of violet lightning from Ezreal's ancient gauntlet bombarded the ground in rapid succession, constructing a suffocating, arcane spatial blockade. Ezreal flickered across dimensions with uncanny agility, his mocking, shrill laughter echoing across the battlefield. Noble Grand Commander of the Vatican, did you truly believe you could retrieve the prize of the NIC Alliance so effortlessly? Today, this barren wasteland shall become the mass grave for the entire Holy Vatican army. Ebert swung his consecrated blade, shattering the violet energy barrage, the sheer kinetic force of his holy sword beam hurling Ezreal several paces backward. Nevertheless, Ezreal's momentary obstruction bought sufficient time for a cataclysmic, world-shaking miasma to erupt from deep within the subterranean depths. The earth split wide open, spewing boiling red lava as Robbie, supreme overlord of the NIC Alliance, officially descended upon the battlefield. Robbie stood towering like a black mountain of doom, his entire physique engulfed in churning abyssal flames. He stared down at Ebert with the absolute, predatory disdain of a superior hunter. Upon his chest, the 3 colossal NIC talismanic runes blazed in a lethal, blood-red glow, actively siphoning the souls of the freshly fallen across the plains to exponentially amplify his destructive aura. Ebert, a pathetic puppet representing the Vatican's hollow light. Robbie's voice boomed like rolling thunder from the underworld. Today, the supreme order of magic shall be rewritten in your blood and the total ruin of the Vatican. Wasting no breath on futile words, Ebert channeled the entirety of his sacred light into his blade, vaulting skyward to bring down a thunderous, cleaving strike aimed directly at Robbie's skull. 2 supreme forces, the divine holy light of the Vatican and the archaic demon arts of NIC, collided violently in midair, unleashing a catastrophic shockwave that collapsed an entire flank of the Veral mountain range. The cataclysmic duel between Ebert and Robbie raged with horrifying ferocity, tearing the nocturnal sky asunder and reducing the surrounding landscape into a scorched wasteland choked with fire and toxic smoke. Wielding supreme swordsmanship and untainted divine power, Ebert unleashed consecutive holy slashes that cleaved through Robbie's blackened armor. Yet Robbie showed no sign of faltering. Every grievous wound carved into his flesh rapidly sealed shut through the savage, regenerative bloodcraft of the NIC lineage. Sensing that Ebert's divine reserves were exceptionally vast and impossible to extinguish through conventional dark arts, Robbie's eyes suddenly flared with unhinged madness. Unleashing a bestial roar, he thrust his massive arm into the empty void, ripping open reality to pull forth a pitch-black bloodstone pulsing violently like a living heart. This was the ancient Archdemon heart, a forbidden relic containing cataclysmic destruction sealed away over 1,000 years ago. Witness the absolute dominion of the NIC Netherworld, Robbie bellowed to the heavens. Before the horrified eyes of Ebert and the surviving Vatican legions, Robbie unhesitatingly unhinged his jaws and swallowed the Archdemon heart whole. An unspeakable horror unfolded immediately afterward. Robbie's physical form swelled to twice its original size, his flesh splitting apart to reveal thick, black veins flowing like molten poison. The 3 NIC talismanic runes on his chest sank deep into his bone marrow, radiating a foul, suffocating radiance that completely overwhelmed the holy light of the battlefield. The dark magic erupting from Robbie's frame warped the very fabric of space, completing his ascension into a true archdemon of ruin with power far surpassing the limits of the mortal realm. Swinging his dark scepter, Robbie unleashed a sweeping shockwave of crimson-black energy across the plains, shattering Ebert's holy light barrier to splinters. Ebert was hurled violently through the air, his golden divine armor fracturing into broken shards, vomiting a mouthful of fresh blood before crashing heavily onto the frozen stones. The supreme leader of the Vatican fell to one knee, driving the tip of his broken blade into the earth to support his battered frame. Yet his severe wounds rendered him unable to cast high-tier holy magic. In the far distance, Sanji stood silently atop a jagged precipice, his two-toned hair whipping wildly in the noxious wind. His glowing crimson eyes took in the horrific sight of Robbie consuming the demon heart and striking Ebert down. Yet instead of advancing to purge the remaining Vatican forces as commanded, Sanji felt an invisible current of dark magic stealthily siphoning the vital essence from his own body, funneling it directly toward Robbie through the cursed NIC brand. Robbie had covertly utilized the NIC seal to turn Sanji into an auxiliary mana reservoir, draining his original reserves to sustain his archdemon ascension without his consent. Sanji's gaze turned frigid as the flames of boundless hatred surged within his chest. He realized that he had once again been treated as a dispensable tool, betrayed by the very overlord to whom he had surrendered his soul. A chilling, wicked smile crept across Sanji's exquisite, androgynous face as he melted quietly into the shadows behind Robbie's towering back. Doi de la ban dik tiang an chuan zak. De du tung cao chu va cao truck don van kua fan 11 va fan 12. Doi chu nguyen van voi ban tiang viet. Part 11. The Backstab from the NIC Shadows. The battlefield of Veril sank into a suffocating, deathly silence. Robbie, having completely consumed the Archdemon heart, stood towering like a colossal mountain of black stone amidst an ocean of raging fire and severed corpses. His arrogant, booming laughter echoed across the Netherworld as he looked down upon Grand Commander Ebert of the Vatican kneeling in defeat. His golden armor shattered to pieces and his holy light sword driven deep into the cracked ground. The absolute, unassailable victory of the heretical NIC Alliance seemed entirely within his grasp. Robbie took heavy, earth-shaking steps toward Ebert, raising his dark scepter high to deliver the final execution that would extinguish the supreme symbol of justice of the Holy Vatican forever. Yet, at that pinnacle of hubris, a slender silhouette glided through the noxious smoke as swiftly as a streak of black lightning. Rip. The sickening sound of tearing flesh and sundering iron armor resonated with chilling clarity. A pale hand tipped with elongated, razor-sharp black talons plunged directly through Robbie's back, piercing straight through his fortified breastplate and seizing his violently pulsing heart, which was smoking with dense black miasma. Robbie's eyes bulged in shock, his massive frame freezing instantly under an agonizing, sky-rending pain. Trembling violently, he looked down at the blood-drenched hand protruding from his shattered chest. From behind, an exquisite, androgynous face leaned close to his ear, silken strands of two-toned gold and black hair brushing against Robbie's pointed ear. Sanji curled his blood-red lips into a sinister, haunting smile, whispering in a chilling voice that shifted between refined elegance and a shrill demonic hiss. "Great Lord Robbie, did you truly believe I was unaware of my magic being secretly siphoned away through this cursed NIC seal? All this time I served loyally as your instrument of torture, only for you to treat me as a disposable vessel to be discarded when drained? Sanji, you treacherous insect." Robbie choked on his own words, thick black blood spewing from the corners of his mouth, his titanic body convulsing violently yet unable to move a single muscle under the paralyzing dark arts Sanji infused into his core. "Treacherous, you say?" Sanji giggled softly, a sound so unnerving it sent cold shivers down to the marrow. "This cruel world taught me that trust is the filthiest illusion. Whoever dares to betray me shall pay the price with both their miserable life and their soul." Without a single shred of hesitation, Sanji yanked his hand backward with terrifying force, completely ripping the severed demonic heart from Robbie's chest cavity. Robbie let out one final, harrowing roar before collapsing face first into the pool of muddy gore, his colossal body swiftly disintegrating into plumes of black ash. Sanji raised the smoking, blackened organ dripping with fresh blood high into the air, parted his crimson lips, and swallowed it whole before the stunned, terrified gazes of both the Vatican and NIC armies. The instant the Archdemon heart dissolved into his bloodstream, a colossal torrent of archaic, primordial energy detonated violently inside Sanji's body. Every single NIC talismanic rune carved across his skin flared with blinding radiance, searing his meridians and propelling his magical capacity far beyond all mortal boundaries. Ascending straight to the boundless realm of the ancient Archdemon, his two-toned hair whipped upward in a tempest of dark lightning, while his blood-red eyes blazed like twin abyssal pits destined to reduce all creation to cinders. Yet, the archaic forbidden arts of NIC, sealed over a millennium ago, never bestowed absolute power without demanding a catastrophic price in return. The very second his power peaked at its infinite zenith, an agonizing, unbearable heart spasm suddenly struck Sanji's chest. The newly consumed demonic heart began contracting violently as if pierced by 10,000 poisoned needles. Every muscle fiber being torn apart by the ancient curse, the greater the magical power grows. The more agonizing the heart shall be torn, and the bearer of the curse shall be rendered eternally immortal, forever denied the release of death to escape this endless torment. Sanji clutched his chest tightly, collapsing to his knees and letting out an ear-splitting, agonizing scream. The sheer force of his shriek cracked the surrounding stone cliffs into spiderweb patterns. He clawed desperately at his own chest, tearing through flesh and skin. Yet his unholy immortal regeneration instantly closed the wounds, locking him into a perpetual, inescapable cycle of agony. From behind the rubble, Vlad Dracula struggled to his feet, his body battered and bleeding from countless lacerations. Witnessing his dearest friend writhing in a living hell upon earth, the Vampire Lord's heart was torn by boundless grief. He surged forward, spreading his blood-red bat wings wide and channeling the entirety of his consecrated vampire bloodcraft to purify and suppress the rampaging dark mana consuming Sanji. Sanji, stop this madness, regurgitate that demonic heart. Do not allow the heretical arts of NIC to destroy your soul any further. Yet in his delirium of unendurable pain and blinding hatred, Sanji had lost all semblance of sanity. He saw Dracula only as an enemy arriving to rob him of his hard-won power. With a single, maddened sweep of his arm, a cataclysmic shockwave of dark magic detonated outward from Sanji, blasting Dracula hundreds of meters through the air. Crash! Dracula's body smashed violently into the vertical cliffside, his bones fracturing upon impact. Spitting a large mouthful of lifeblood, he fell limp and unconscious onto the freezing snow below. Standing at the violent epicenter of the arcane tempest, Sanji both laughed hysterically and wept bitterly through the gut-wrenching heart spasms. Officially transformed into an immortal abomination bearing the eternal, unceasing agony of the netherworld of Veril. Doi de la ban dik tiang an chuan zak. De du tung cao chu va cao truck don van kua fan 13 va fan 14. Doi chu nguyen van voi ban tiang viet. Part 13. Rescue in a Sea of Blood and Ezreal's Slaughter. Following Dracula being blasted away into unconsciousness, the battlefield of Veril descended into absolute, suffocating chaos. Ebert, though covered in severe wounds with his golden divine armor completely fractured, gritted his teeth tightly and forced every remaining drop of holy energy into his legs, charging toward the black stone altar where his sister Ember remained imprisoned. Every stride taken by the Grand Commander of the Vatican felt as though he were treading across the searing flames of duty and sacred bloodline bonds. Yet Ezreal, the bearer of the NIC Pathfinder insignia, had no intention of letting his ultimate bargaining chip slip away so easily. The ancient arcane gauntlet upon his arm blazed with a sinister, crackling violet lightning storm, warping through space in an instant. Ezreal materialized directly in front of Ebert, blocking his path with a treacherous, sneering grin. Supreme Grand Commander, did you truly believe you could carry this Saintess away from here unscathed? Robbie has fallen, but the NIC Alliance shall turn this barren land into your eternal tomb. Ezreal whipped his arm forward, unleashing dozens of spatial lightning arcs as razor-sharp as surgical blades, aimed straight at Ebert's exposed chest. In that breath between life and death, Ebert did not yield a single inch. He willfully allowed the lightning to tear through his flesh, carving deep, smoking chasms of blood across his torso, and in return swung the holy light sword with catastrophic force, severing Ezreal's gauntleted arm clean off at the shoulder. Ah! Ezreal's shrill, agonizing shriek shattered the night as his severed limb struck the earth. Jet black blood spraying violently from the stump. Stripped of his paramount weapon, Ezreal clutched his wound and invoked arcane spatial magic to flee into the empty void, abandoning the panicked, leaderless remnants of the NIC forces. Ebert lunged onto the raised dais, his blade cleaving the dark magical chains that bound Ember. Her fragile, battered body, marred by endless wounds, collapsed into her brother's embrace. Through trembling, pale lips, she gasped weakly, "Brother, Ebert, beware, Sanji, he is no longer human." Ebert embraced his sister tightly, channeling a warm current of holy light to preserve her fragile, fading life force, while his eyes burned with incandescent wrath toward the androgynous phantom writhing amidst the dark tempest at the center of the valley. In the middle of the desolate wasteland reeking of deathly miasma, Sanji was entirely submerged in the delirium of primordial archdemon ascension and the thousand-year-old curse. The agony radiating from the demonic heart he had swallowed burned through every cell in his body like a raging furnace. The ancient forbidden magic of NIC surged outward, coalescing into colossal pillars of black smoke that soared into the heavens, dyeing the mortal moon above into a sickening, grotesque crimson blood moon. Sanji dragged himself to his feet, his hands clawing frantically at his own blood-drenched chest. His two-toned hair, half radiant gold, half abyssal black, danced wildly like a nest of venomous vipers. He let out shrill, piercing shrieks of laughter interwoven with gut-wrenching, mournful wails, his cadence shifting constantly between feminine melodic sobs and masculine guttural roars. Agony. How utterly magnificent. Is this truly the price of supreme, boundless power? Ha ha ha. Have you witnessed this, you filthy peasant vermin of Oakhaven? Have you seen this, you righteous hypocrites of the Vatican? Sanji turned his glowing crimson eyes toward Ebert holding Ember, and the motionless body of Vlad Dracula lying prone upon the frozen snow. The sadism and insatiable bloodlust festering within his mind erupted to its absolute zenith. He no longer distinguished between friend and foe, in Sanji's eyes. Every living entity across the cosmos had to taste the exact same unendurable torment he was forced to bear. Every single one of you shall kneel and writhe in eternal agony alongside me. Sanji hissed violently through his teeth. A cataclysmic wave of dark magical pressure swept across the entirety of the Veral Valley, grinding boulders and stone cliffs into fine dust. The slain corpses of soldiers from both factions littering the grounds began twitching violently, resurrected by Sanji's heretical power into a horrifying undead legion, setting the stage for the bloodiest, most tragic finale of the holy war between light and darkness. Doi de la ban dik tiang an chuan zak. De du tung cao chu va cao truck don van kua fan 15 va fan 16. Doi chu nguyen van voi ban tiang viet. Part 15. The Corpse's Legion and Ember's heartbreaking sobs. The ground of the Veral Valley ruptured into massive chasms, pitch-black lava spewing violently under Sanji's boundless, overwhelming magical pressure. The fallen corpses of the Holy Vatican paladins and the demonic beasts of the NIC Alliance that had just perished suddenly began convulsing with horrifying intensity, under the influence of the blazing crew or dark energy coursing through Sanji's veins. Thousands of cadavers with hollow, glowing blood-red eyes slowly dragged themselves to their feet, clutching shattered, rusted weapons to form a nightmarish undead legion that tightly encircled the black stone altar. Ebert gently rested Ember's battered, broken body against the cracked marble precipice. The hands of the Vatican's supreme leader were drenched in blood, every muscle fiber trembling from sheer exhaustion and the deep, gaping wounds left behind by Ezreal's spatial lightning. Watching the horrific undead army advance with dragging, grotesque steps, Ebert drew the holy light sword, plunging the blade deep into the earth to erect one final sacred perimeter ward around his sister. Ember, hold this protective jade talisman tightly. No matter what happens, under no circumstances are you to step beyond this barrier, Ebert commanded in a low, gravelly voice, his eyes blazing with the resolute fire of martyrdom. Ember extended her frail, trembling arm, covered in severe scars left by the magical whip, clutching tightly onto her brother's tattered tunic. Pure, transparent tears traced down her pale cheeks as she choked through heart-wrenching sobs. Brother Ebert, do not go. Sanji's magical power has surpassed every mortal boundary. He is no longer a creature that can be severed by blades or purged by holy arts. That demonic heart is transmuting him into an unkillable, immortal archdemon. Be he archdemon or fiend, the Vatican shall never bow its head before the vile darkness of NIC. Ebert roared, spinning around to face the oncoming ocean of corpses. Suspended high above in midair, Sanji hovered amidst the toxic tempest, his sheer crimson silk robe whipping wildly in the noxious gale. One hand clutched his violently spasming chest, agonizing under the demonic heart's ancient curse, while the other hand swept outward, conjuring colossal sides of pure darkness that sheared through the fabric of space. Sanji glared down at the two royal siblings with unhinged insanity, his shrill, androgynous voice hissing through clenched teeth. Noble sibling devotion? How utterly laughable. Allow me to shatter every last remnant of your pathetic hope, so that you may taste the despair of watching your dearest kin ground to absolute ash. Boom. With a vicious wave of Sanji's arm, the entire undead legion bellowed in unison, throwing themselves into Ebert's holy light barrier like a swarm of ravenous moths starving for fresh blood, inaugurating the most barbaric and catastrophic slaughter in the history of magic. The holy light sword within Ebert's grasp detonated with blinding celestial brilliance, resembling a miniature sun descending upon the pitch-black night of Veril. The Grand Commander of the Vatican transformed into a golden streak of light sweeping across the battlefield, cleaving the skulls of hundreds of undead and sundering the lethal encirclement to charge straight toward Sanji. Every wide arc he cleaved carried the supreme purifying essence of the Vatican, incinerating toxic miasma and heretical ash alike. Sanji did not give ground, even as the 1,000-year-old heart curse ripped through every blood vessel within his chest, twisting his exquisite countenance into a mask of pure agony. The primordial dark magic of NIC surged relentlessly like an overflowing tide. He brought down brutal whips of pitch-black energy, clashing head-on with Ebert's consecrated steel. Clang, clang, boom. The apocalyptic collision of divine steel and archaic sorcery shook the heavens and earth, completely collapsing the surrounding stone mountain ridges. Channeling the entirety of his remaining life essence, Ebert invoked the supreme ultimate art of the Holy Vatican, Holy Light Judgment. A colossal blade of pure celestial light spanning hundreds of meters plunged straight down from the highest heavens, piercing straight through the heretical dark barrier, impaling Sanji through the chest and pinning him deep into the floor of the valley chasm. The earth shuddered violently. Untainted holy light burned Sanji's flesh, sending plumes of thick white smoke into the air. Ebert fell to his knees, panting heavily in a pool of blood, believing that this fatal divine judgment had finally extinguished the abomination. Yet, a nightmare defying every law of reality unfolded before his eyes. From the bottom of the deep chasm shrouded in dense smoke, a shrill, unearthly laughter echoed with chilling clarity. Sanji slowly rose from the pulverized rubble. The gaping wound carved through his chest by the holy blade was rapidly knitting itself together at an impossible speed, fibers of blackened flesh intertwined. Regenerating unblemished, pale skin, Robbie's archdemon heart within his chest continued beating with violent, frenzied thuds. The immortal curse inscribed within the ancient NIC grimoire over 1,000 years ago had taken absolute hold. Sanji could never, across all eternity, be killed. Ha ha ha. Ebert, did you truly believe the cheap holy parlor tricks of the Vatican could end my life? Sanji groaned and clutched his chest as agonizing spasms struck immediately after regeneration. Yet his glowing crimson eyes brimmed with manic ecstasy. I suffer, yet I am immortal. You cannot destroy me. Sanji vanished in a blur, reappearing instantly before Ebert's face. His black-taloned palm struck out with catastrophic force, shattering the holy light sword to pieces and blasting the Grand Commander of the Vatican into the stone altar wall. Ebert spat a massive mouthful of blood and collapsed into unconsciousness, leaving the Holy Vatican standing upon the precipice of total annihilation. Doi de la ban dik tiang an chuan zak. De du tung cao chu va cao truck don van kua fan 17 va fan 18. Doi chu nguyen ven voi ban tiang viet. Part 17. The Return of the Pathfinder and the Primordial Roar. Amidst the desolate ruins of the Veril Valley, the atmosphere hung thick with the suffocating stench of blood and the ashes of holy magic. Grand Commander Ebert lay motionless at the foot of the shattered marble altar, his holy light sword severed in two and scattered upon the cold earth, blood continuously gushing from his chest to stain his golden divine armor. Ember, her frail body ruined after days of barbaric torture, desperately crawled across the frozen ground toward her brother. Her trembling, blood-stained hands cupped Ebert's pale face amidst choked, despairing sobs. Brother Ebert, wake up, please. May the supreme beings save my brother. From within the toxic miasma of NIC dark magic, a lethal tear of crackling violet space violently ruptured open. Ezreal, who was thought to have fled after having his arm severed, stepped slowly out from the void. His missing limb had now been replaced by a block of ancient spatial magicite radiating eerie, blazing will-o'-the-wisps. A cunning, victorious sneer stretched across the Pathfinder's treacherous face. Ha ha ha. Is this truly the limit of the great Grand Commander of the Vatican? Robbie is dead, but the NIC Alliance shall take both your heads as a grand sacrifice to inaugurate our new era of darkness. Ezreal raised his magicite arm high, gathering a cataclysmic blast of lightning to reduce Ebert and Ember to ash. Simultaneously, Sanji hovered in midair, one hand clutching his chest which was spasming in excruciating agony from the demon heart's curse. His blood-red eyes flashing with sick bloodlust, eagerly anticipating the execution. Yet, the precise instant Ezreal's lethal lightning discharged, a sky-rending roar tore through the valley from the realm of the dead. Whoosh! A colossal shadow lunged forward at a speed defying the boundaries of sound. Massive, blood-red bat wings swept across the void, batting Ezreal's lightning blast into the high heavens while unleashing a shockwave of vampire bloodcraft that shattered Ezreal's magicite arm once more, hurling the traitor hundreds of meters away to crash violently against the stone cliff. Vlad Dracula had awakened, standing as a towering shield before the dying forms of Ebert and Ember. The Vampire Lord was stripped of his usual melancholic elegance. His ruby eyes blazed with the incandescent fury of consecrated blood. Seeing the supreme leader of the Vatican on the brink of death and his dearest friend Sanji completely submerged in the abyss of corruption, Dracula made his ultimate choice. He unsealed his 1,000-year-old restraint, unleashing the primordial archdemon core of the ancient Dracula bloodline. Dracula's flesh shifted into an imposing, regal dark violet hue. Ancient demonic horns crowned his brow, and his colossal bat wings ignited with purified blood light. Dracula had transformed into an Archdemon of Justice, a supreme entity wielding the destructive might of the Netherworld while maintaining a righteous, benevolent heart dedicated to protecting the light of the cosmos. Sanji. Dracula's voice boomed like rolling thunder amidst the storm. Today, I shall use this very demonic form to put an end to your madness. The battlefield of Veril shook violently as the two mightiest demonic entities of creation clashed in an apocalyptic duel to the death. On one side stood Sanji, the absolute archdemon of darkness bearing the profoundly vile and corrupt NIC demon heart, an entity worshipping torture and eternal hatred. On the other side stood Vlad Dracula, the Vampire Lord bearing the heart of justice, the embodiment of darkness purified by unyielding faith in righteousness. Boom, crash, roar. Every devastating collision between Dracula's blood demon talons and Sanji's cruor whip carved bottomless chasms into the earth. Molten lava erupted and massive boulders disintegrated into fine dust under the sheer cataclysmic force. Sanji attacked with unhinged ferocity, his androgynous beauty twisting in extreme bloodlust. Every strike Sanji delivered was aimed to kill, the pitch-black mana from his NIC brand flooding out like a deluge to tear Dracula's body apart. Dracula, do you truly believe your so-called demon of justice can stop me? I am immortal. I possess the boundless mana of the Netherworld. You are immortal, yet your soul rots away with each passing second in a hell of your own making. Sanji, Dracula roared, his blood wings beating furiously to release tens of thousands of consecrated blood blades that impaled Sanji's body. Black ichor and crimson blood sprayed across the wasteland. Sanji was lacerated by thousands of gaping wounds, yet his immortal magic instantly regenerated his flesh in the blink of an eye. However, the price for this regeneration was horrific. Every time Sanji pushed his magic to the absolute zenith to overpower Dracula, the demon heart in his chest convulsed violently under the millennium-old curse. The greater the magical power unleashed, the more agonizingly the heart is torn apart. Sanji clutched his chest, collapsing to the earth in violent convulsions. The heart spasms, feeling as though millions of venomous maggots were gnawing through every cell, completely shattered his offensive stance. Witnessing Sanji's magic locked and backfiring into his heart, Dracula gathered the last ounce of his sovereign power, transforming into a colossal pillar of sacred bloodlight that crashed down upon Sanji's chest, completely suppressing the archaic dark arts of NIC. The battle ended amidst catastrophic ruin. Both titanic archdemons of light and darkness exhausted, critically wounded, and collapsing unconscious upon the devastated wasteland. Doi de la ban dik tiang an chuan zak. De du tung cao chu va cao truck don van kua fan 19 va fan 20. Hon tat tron ven ton bo ban dik kua thien trong ca kin di. Part 19. The Chains of Sealing and Endless Agony. Dense plumes of dust and deathly miasma gradually settled over the devastated plains of Viral. Amidst the thick, coagulated pool of black ichor, both supreme demonic entities had depleted their life essence to the absolute limit. Vlad Dracula, having poured every drop of his spiritual reserves as the sovereign of the just bloodline, retracted his torn and battered bat wings. His frame, covered in deep, bone-exposing wounds smoking with dark residue, collapsed beside the shattered stone altar and slipped into a profound, comatose slumber. Not far away, Sanji lay prostrate upon the cracked earth, his hands digging deeply into his own chest amidst horrifying convulsions. The ancient archdemon heart of NIC, having completely consumed Robbie, was now violently gnawing through every fiber of muscle within his core. The 1,000-year-old immortal curse descended like an eternal life sentence. He could not die. And every physical laceration closed automatically. But the catastrophic price was that every single heartbeat brought an agonizing torment as if burned by 1,000 infernal furnaces. Sanji's immense magical power was firmly locked by that very curse, leaving him entirely powerless to continue unleashing slaughter upon the world. Grand Commander Ebert, sustained by the final drop of Ember's sacred blood, struggled to his feet from the pool of blood. His golden divine armor lay completely shattered, one of his arms permanently crippled by Ezreal's catastrophic lightning. Yet the gaze of the Vatican's supreme leader still blazed with regal majesty. Ebert understood that with the exhausted state of the surviving Vatican forces and the unholy, immortal nature of Sanji, no mortal or divine weapon could truly destroy this dark entity at this moment. Dragging heavy, deliberate steps toward Sanji, Ebert raised the remaining half of his fractured holy light sword. He did not plunge it into his enemy's heart. Instead, he drove the broken blade firmly into the earth directly before Sanji, activating the Vatican's most ancient sealing array, the Holy Light Prison. Pillars of untainted celestial light erupted from the subterranean depths, weaving together into colossal chains of pure luminescence that bound Sanji's limbs, imprisoning him deep into the dark subterranean foundation of the Viral frontier. Sanji raised his tear-stained, blood-drenched androgynous face toward Ebert, his scarlet lips parting slightly as he gasped through choked, trembling breaths. "Ebert, you cannot kill me. I shall live on forever in this agony, and my vengeance against this wretched world shall never, across all eternity, be extinguished." Ebert stared directly into Sanji's glowing crimson eyes, his voice resonating with deep authority and profound sorrow. "You shall not die, Sanji, but you shall remain imprisoned in eternal darkness alongside your own hatred and your cursed heart spasms. That is the ultimate retribution for one who cast aside his humanity to follow the dark shadow of NIC." The sinister night that enveloped the Viral Valley finally dispersed as the first pale rays of mortal dawn pierced through the heavy gray clouds. The blood-drenched holy war between the Holy Vatican and the heretical NIC alliance had officially drawn to a close, leaving behind a desolate, breathtakingly tragic landscape. Ember survived the prolonged torment within the abyssal dungeons of Tartarus, but the dark magical scars carved across her flesh and the brutal psychological trauma inflicted by Sanji would remain an indelible stain upon the pure maiden's soul for the rest of her days. Trembling, she supported her brother Ebert, the great Grand Commander who now bore permanent physical disabilities, his divine holy magic severely depleted after the mortal duel. Beside them, Vlad Dracula was placed gently onto a stretcher by the surviving Vatican paladins. The Vampire Lord bearing the heart of justice had expended his entire life force to defend the realm of light, entering a 1,000-year restorative slumber to heal the severe spiritual fissures inflicted by the cruel dark arts. The cherished friendship of their youth between him and Sanji was now reduced to cold ash and frozen tears of blood upon the snow. The treacherous pathfinder Ezreal fled into fragmented spatial dimensions with his severed arm, living as an exiled vagabond of the collapsed NIC alliance. Overlord Robbie had vanished into nothingness following the brutal backstab and heart extraction by his own trusted lieutenant. And deep beneath the sealed abyss of Viral, where eternal darkness reigned supreme and the holy light of the Vatican could never reach, Sanji lay bound in chains of celestial light. He could not claim victory over the Vatican, Yet no force could strip away his immortal life. In the endless, suffocating gloom, the violent thuds of his beating heart, harmonized with his gut-wrenching, agonizing moans, echoed continuously across the passing centuries. The entity possessing ethereal androgynous beauty, who once harbored pure benevolence, was now forever imprisoned within a hell of his own making, an immortal monument to absolute hatred, sadistic depravity, and the eternal, unceasing torment of the dark realm.